Welcome back, still Breakfast Central on News Central today, Thursday, November 28, 2019. Let's go straight to more on the impact today, still on the theme, gender-based violence across Africa. We continue the advocacy and the activism right here. Now, we know that gender-based violence includes acts of violence in forms of physical, psychological, or sexual violence against a person, specifically because of his or her gender. Now, it constitutes one of the most widespread human rights abuses and public health problems in the world today, with devastating long-term consequences for the victims, physical and mental. Now, governments are legally obligated to address the problems of gender-based violence through a range of measures, including legislation. Now, for this, that criminalizes violence against women, codifies the rights of women to live free of violence. But laws can play an important symbolic role by indicating that such behavior is socially unacceptable. Now, the associated sanctions may serve a deterrence function, but either or both levels may work in practice to reduce the incidence of violence. Now, legislation on gender-based violence across sub-Saharan Africa is often tailored towards rape, sexual assault, and domestic violence. Now, it does not address the many other forms of such violence that take place, including female genital mutilation, trafficking of women, and forced prostitution. Now, despite the challenges faced by sub-Saharan African states enacting and implementing these legislative reforms, there is now a widespread recognition that gender-based violence must be addressed through specific and appropriate laws. However, the good news is that we are joined by Olamide Onifade, who's a lawyer, and tells us about the legalities one can look at when discussing gender-based violence. Welcome, Olamide, to the show. Right, looking at the legal angles, where one can get redress across many African states when it comes to gender-based violence. We do know that this year's theme, violence against women, which is more of the angles we're still towards. But from a legal perspective, what are the apparatuses that are there, that one can seek redress from when it comes to gender-based violence?
Okay. Specifically, we were talking about Lagos. Lagos, I think, is a pace setter in this area.
Yeah.
Lagos has
so you're going into you want to start from Lagos, West Africa. Okay.
Lagos has done a lot, and I will single it out in most of the states. In most of all the states. Okay, Ekiti State is also doing very, very well. They actually have a law, an all-encompassing law based on gender-based violence.
Okay.
So it encompasses emotional abuse, psychological abuse, economic abuse from intimate partners. Even it involves female genital mutilation. So it's very. So
there's legislation
in Ekiti State, yes, because the first lady is, I think, is a pet project.
Okay.
So it's just been signed and it was reenacted in 2019.
In 20. So basically, there's legislation when it comes to gender-based violence in some of these states.
Just very few.
Very few.
In Lagos, we have for domestic violence.
For domestic violence.
Yes.
But when you look at this legislation, does it skew in some sense towards the gender-based angles?
Oh, definitely. Okay. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. There are laws. Nigeria has lots of laws. I think the problem we have is the implementation. The laws are there. It is just the execution.
Would you say that the implementation problem we're having, and to be specific, with maybe Lagos or Nigeria, before we go to Africa, is that if the laws are there,
yes,
written in black and white,
yes,
and they are not being implemented, it means that they're not being used. It means that the people are not aware of these laws about gender-based violence or forms of violence against even women, to be more precise.
Yes.
And if they're not aware of it, how do the victims or people who've experienced some form of gender-based violence then seek redress? Because you're making it very clear, like in some states like Lagos and Ekiti, the laws are there. So is it
even Jigawa?
So is it the awareness or the lack of reporting of these incidences?
Okay.
What has made that the laws are just kept there?
It's multi-dimensional.
Okay.
Fine. First, lack of education. You would see that a lot of women are down the poverty line.
Pecking order, so to speak.
Yes, because they've been denied access to education. And of course, when you are not educated, your access to information and knowing your right to be limited. So most of these survivors, they don't know who to talk to.
So it's a case of silenced voice, silent
culture
voices.
Of silence. And people who they even talk to are not aware of what they should do. And even some that are aware, they rather suppress it because of stigmatization. Then the place that you're supposed to report to, unfortunately, the infrastructure is not there because of priorities in the police force. Number one, they do not have enough trained personnel when it comes to gender-based
this kind of issues. Yeah.
Some of them don't even understand. When you go to the police station to make report, they send you back home. Some of them do not. They're not well trained, and there are no policies in place for all this. So it's hard on the survival. The laws are there. It's just the implementation. So it's not like the laws are not there.
So implementation means if we can get more people reporting, maybe we can now get these laws to work.
Then the personnel's trained, because in Lagos we have the Special Offences Court.
Special Offences Court, okay.
Yes.
Which can handle cases of gender.
Yes, and that can easily dispense with justice.
Okay.
But there isn't much prosecution going on because you need the police to handle the prosecution.
Okay, so with this Lagos special courts, that's supposed to be functioning, and there's not much justice.
It's functioning minimally. It's not.
So why is it? Is it lack of reporting?
It's number one. The basic problem we have
is the police.
No, it's reporting.
Reporting. Okay.
There's a culture of silence going on. You don't want to. It's the stigmatization, the victimization. When I report, when I go to my mother, I'm just saying for instance, and you report sexual assault, your husband violates you. There's marital rape. I hope you know there's marital rape. But nobody's going to report it. And part of the issues are the evidence. How can you give evidence of what has transpired in a social setting?
Even if it's not even rape or any form of,
Yes, gender-based violence is not just rape. It involves emotional abuse, psychological abuse, even economic abuse.
Oh.
Yes. You as a man, you're the head of the home, but you want to suppress your spouse by not paying school fees, by not giving.
What about non-spousal cases or non-relational cases or romantic cases?
There are quite a number of them. Okay.
Or perhaps even colleagues at work or maybe friends somewhere, but there's a form of gender-based violence that's happened within this relationship, whether it's a long-term or short-term.
It's the process of reporting.
Okay.
You find out that even in workplaces.
What does that process take? Why is that process such a glass ceiling? It looks like the process is not the glass. The reporting is not the glass ceiling for gender-based violence.
It's not a priority in the society. People, the leadership, there's no political will to prioritize it.
The political will have to come from the politicians. I thought the political will belongs to the people. The people have the power. So
how do they implement it? They implement it through the executive.
Okay.
And the police belongs to the executive arm of the government.
Okay, and that part is always almost...
Yes, that's yes.
That's a
because
problem.
Even if I desire to report the fact that the first thing is you get to the police station and they just make fun of you.
Because that's supposed to be the first place you're going to
that you turn to.
Before you they're supposed to recommend you to these courts, right? Like the special courts.
When gathering evidence, you have to take medical evidence.
Yeah, because you don't just walk to the courts, right?
The facilities are not there.
Even in the special courts, you don't just go seek
you have to be evidence.
Through the police.
So the issue too is access to justice, because you need to prefer evidence. And how do you gather evidence? The police are not helping. Then the infrastructure are not there medically. For instances of rape victims, there's no. Most of the time, you go to the hospital and there are no rape kits, which involves forensic evidence and all that. Most of the time, we don't have it.
That's quite a really gloomy situation, almost hopeless, right? So almost hopeless, and I'm really started to use the word hopeless, because how does then the victim of gender-based violence get justice if a large part of this evidence-based.
It's the political will. That's where we'll start.
Okay.
If the government can channel enough resources into that area to raise awareness and to train more personnel when it comes to the police, then
so that takes us back to police reform in Nigeria, to be more specific.
Oh yeah, that's why I said it's multidimensional.
Because you can't have the police trained on sexual
and don't forget that
when the police itself still has another issue with criminality.
yes, and don't forget that the police are overwhelmed.
Yeah,
they're overwhelmed. There's an issue of kidnapping somewhere or robbery, and you're going there that my husband beats me. Do you understand? They might not prioritize it. At that time, they just relegate it.
So let's talk about Africa. Okay. Generally, how would you regard African states when it comes to this issue about gender-based violence? From a legal perspective.
The problem we have in Nigeria is widespread enough.
It's widespread. So you just want to blanket.
No, but that's the truth. It happens everywhere because of the culture and religion.
The avenues you've talked about, like the ones in Lagos or Ekiti, how much, the victims, how much support do they really get through these legislations once they are in that process of, okay, it's been reported, whether there's evidence or not, it's now gone through this legislations, the legal system. How much support do they get once,
Most supports they get it from non-governmental organizations.
Or the NGOs.
The NGOs are doing a lot, but the government institutions, it's a bit limited. As take for instance, I don't think there's any shelter for women that are abused where they can get, emergency shelter. I don't think there's any. If there's any, it's from the NGOs. The government institutions have not prioritized it. So the legislations are there, but the support system is not there. So most of the support you get is from the NGOs.
Okay. Also, actually, what other measures are being put in place, for alternative dispute resolutions, especially when it comes to issues about sexual violence? Because you do tend that most of this gender-based violence can skew towards the sexual part of it.
You can't do alternative dispute resolution in sexual violence. It's not possible. You can't mediate it. You can mediate in domestic violence.
Okay.
Oh yes, it's absolutely a no. Once there's an element of sexual violence, it has to be prosecuted.
From a criminal perspective?
Yes.
Oh,
it's an offense against the state. So you can only mediate civil matters, not criminal.
I don't want to even go to another case, or a high-profile case we just, had legal.
Okay, yes. In that case, it's purely criminal.
Yeah.
So that's why I didn't succeed.
Let's not even go there. I'm glad we sync on that one. But this is not really, a laughing matter. Okay, let's come back to the sexual offenders register that we just saw recently in Nigeria. From your experience and also from a legal perspective, many have seen this as a good move, a register that can be accessed by the authorities and the people. Can we say this is the first step at least?
Yes, it's a good step.
Okay.
But I still go back to what I've been saying, the implementation. How many people are aware of this register? And even when their names are there, is it going to deter anything? What's it going to do? But anyway, it's good. It's a right step on the. Let's take it from there. Anyway.
Well, if you were to give your personal opinion about it, what would it be?
Well, I think it's absolutely commendable.
Commendable. Well, it doesn't really solve the problem.
No,
right?
it's one of it. It's one of the it's commendable, and I think that just to raise the awareness of people that there's actually a sexual offences register.
Now, in your line of work as a lawyer, I'm sure you've come across a couple of cases about gender-based violence. If you were to pick up, what's the standard issue when it comes to gender-based violence? What would you say it's been for you that you've really seen? Is it on the sexual angle or perhaps?
It's domestic violence.
Which involves
physical abuse. Physical abuse.
Rampant.
Yes, and there's also sexual violence, marital rape.
Okay, the physical abuse now, does it a romantic partnership or
intimate partners most of the time? Most of the time, it's really on the increase, but people do not talk about it. Even when survivors come to you and want to prosecute, they say no because of stigmata. No. So that is the major problem we have.
The survivors, the victims are telling their legal counsel not.
Yes, they don't want prosecution. They do not want prosecution because of victimization. So most of the time what they want is mediation. They just want you to speak to the spouse.
Well, how do you mediate? Do you mediate out of the legal system?
No, it's within the legal system. Mediation is always it's even advised that if you can mediate in that situation, why not? Even in domestic violence. But it's only when it's sexual violence.
And then it comes.
No, it should, yes.
It becomes criminal.
But most of the time, it's always intertwined anyway.
Yeah. What would you say? How do you then treat your clientele when it comes to these cases that you said?
You just try to talk to them and advise them that it's not your fault. So don't make it look like it's your fault that is happening to you. Speak out about it. If maybe when your cases get prosecuted, then the awareness will be there and it will be reduced. But at the moment, there's no deterrent.
So for the cases that you treat, and you say more of them are domestic violence, even sexual, how many would you say the rates for prosecutions you've seen that, gone through that process?
No, I have not prosecuted any.
Despite the cases of this,
No, I haven't. The only thing most of the time is divorce. They will rather divorce.
Annulment.
Yes.
Totally.
Annulment is different from divorce. Yes.
And this means divorce, which means it's married couples that you're talking about now specifically. Yeah.
But even when it comes to non-intimate partners, a lot of people still don't want to. The fear that there can be a reprisal attack, especially in a neighborhood, and because of the close-knitted kind of communal living, you find out that there's a case of maybe rape in the community, and the parents come to you and start kneeling, begging, bringing all the pastors and all that. So
parents are coming to the legal counsel
definitely to plead
of the complainants.
Do you even know that in rape cases, especially defilement, you don't say rape for children, say defilement. In defilement cases, people settle out of court. Is it not?
But and it's been brought to the council.
How can you settle a rape case out of court? It cannot be mediated. It has to be prosecuted. So most of this rape
defilement.
Yes, most of the defilement cases never see the light of the day because it gets, especially, and the police is also very, very culpable in this. They encourage mediation for rape cases, for defilement cases. It shouldn't be. I have seen one, an agreement, a settlement agreement for money, monetary agreement. It's appalling. So how do you deter? How do you reduce incidences of gender-based and our culture? Our culture encourages it. Then the religion encourages it.
Religious bodies, religious.
Yes. And most of the time,
references.
Most of the time, when you have issues in families or even in the neighborhood, they approach the pastor instead of going to the right channel. Or approaching, professionals. They would rather approach a pastor who would settle it amicably. And there will be a repeat offense.
If you were to give one word before we go on gender-based violence as a lawyer, what would it be? What would you say now?
Awareness and education. A number of women are mostly affected. And don't forget, men are also victims. But it's just that it's more pronounced.
So the awareness goes both ways, both women.
Yes, but particularly for women, if we can educate every child in Nigeria, in Africa, if every child has access to free education, all those problems we're talking about is going to be at the barest minimum because every child will know their rights. The police will know what to do, the parents will know what to do, the children will know what to do, everyone will know what to do. Because
as you said, the laws are there.
The laws are there. Extremely, everywhere the laws are there. It's just implementation.
Well, thank you so much, Olamide Onifade, lawyer, for coming in, and you have really given us quite an insight into where we are right now with gender-based violence, specifically in Nigeria, even in Lagos. Wow, thank you so much for coming on, and we'd love to have you again some other time on the show.
It would be a pleasure.
Right, that's it. Still more to come right here on Breakfast Central on News Central.